We will be talking today about the glorious life of the best of messengers and the last of prophets, Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him. He is Muhammad ibn Abdullah, his grandfather is Abdul Muttalib ibn Hashim, and his mother is Amina bint Wahb. Prophet Muhammad was born on Monday the 12th of the month of Rabi'ul Awwal in what was known as the Year of the Elephant in the holy city of Mecca. His father died while he was still a baby in his mother's womb. After he was born, the first woman to breastfeed him was Thuwaybah. He then lived in the desert with a tribe called Bani Sa'd. There his nurse was called Halima, who saw in him supreme goodness and miraculous blessing. He stayed with her for 4 years. In those days it was the custom of the Arabs to send their children to the desert in order for them to toughen up and learn eloquence. Again, he, peace and blessing be upon him, had to go through the painful experience of being orphaned. Now, his mother passed away when he was 6 years old. It was his grandfather, Abdul Muttalib, who took care of him this time. He treated him better than his own children. Then, before his death, he entrusted him to his uncle Abu Talib. Prophet Muhammad worked as a shepherd and then as a merchant. Once, when he was 12 years old, he traveled in trade with his uncle Abu Talib, and when they reached Busra Sham, a town in the south of what is known now as Syria, a Christian monk named Mahira saw them and said to his uncle Abu Talib, referring to Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him, "This is the master of messengers. This is the messenger of the Lord. This is the one whom Allah will send as a mercy to all mankind." When he grew up, Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him, traded in the wealth of Sayyidah Khadija, and she was extremely impressed by his integrity, truthfulness, and absolute honesty. Afterwards, the Prophet, peace and blessing be upon him, married Sayyidah Khadija when he was 25 years old. While the majority of young men of his generation wasted their time in forbidden play, Prophet Muhammad used to go to the cave of Hira in An-Nur mountain alone to contemplate and worship. When he reached the age of 40, Gabriel the angel, peace be upon him, came to him, and the first thing that was revealed to him was the following verse: "Recite in the name of your Lord who created man from a clinging substance. Recite, and your Lord is the most generous." The call of the Prophet, peace and blessing be upon him, then went through several stages. The first stage was the call to Allah in secret, as he introduced Islam to the people closest to him from his family and friends. The first to convert were his wife Khadija, his servant Zayd ibn Haritha, his cousin Ali ibn Abi Talib, and his friend Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. When the verse, "And warn, O Muhammad, your closest kindred," was revealed, the Prophet, peace and blessing be upon him, ascended the Mount of Safa. Then he began to call out, and the people gathered to him. He said, "Have you seen if I told you that there is cavalry in the valley at the foot of this mountain? Do you believe me?" They said, "Yes, for we have never experienced you lying." He said, "Then I am warning you before a severe punishment occurs." But the Prophet, peace and blessing be upon him, and his followers were met with brutal persecution by the leaders of the non-believers, such as Abu Jahl, Abu Lahab, Umayyah ibn Khalaf, and others. The harm of Quraysh, the Prophet's own tribe, to the Muslims increased dramatically, so the Prophet ordered the Muslims to migrate to Abyssinia, as he knew that its king, the Negus, was a just and fair king. So Quraysh, sent some men after them carrying a lot of gifts for the king and his bishops. But he refused the gifts and did not hand over the Muslims who had migrated to him seeking refuge. After that, the non-believers wanted to take revenge on the Muslims, so they boycotted them and allied themselves against Bani Hashim and Bani Abdul Muttalib, parts of Quraysh to whom the Prophet and his relatives belonged. The Convention of Injustice, which was written on a sheet and hung up inside the Kaaba, included boycotting them in all aspects of life. They were imprisoned in Shi'b ibn Abi Talib, a place in Mecca, for 3 years, a period which they spent painfully in hunger, worry, distress, and hardship. In the 10th year of the prophetic mission, Abu Talib and the mother of believers Khadija both passed away nearly 2 months after Abu Talib's death. It was a very difficult year for the Prophet, peace and blessing be upon him. In the 10th year of the mission, the Prophet went out of Mecca to call for Islam and headed towards Taif, a city near Mecca. But he was met with the same horrible treatment from its people as the one he received from Quraysh, and he was filled with serious worry and deep sadness for their rejection and considerable harm. But that did not deter him from continuing to call for Islam. The Prophet, peace and blessing be upon him, met 6 people from the city of Yathrib, later known as Al-Medina, who were coming to Mecca. So he introduced Islam to them, and they converted and carried Islam back with them to Yathrib. As a result, many of its people converted to Islam too. In the following year, that's in the 12th year of the noble Islamic mission, some of those who had converted from Yathrib came and met the Prophet and pledged allegiance to him on Islam. This means they acknowledged him as their leader and promised to support him and be on his side. Then Prophet Muhammad sent Mus'ab ibn Umair to teach them what they needed to know about Islam. In the year following the first pledge, a large number of them, the people of Yathrib, came to Mecca during the Hajj season, and they pledged allegiance to the Prophet as well. And many Muslims migrated from Mecca to Yathrib after its people converted into Islam. After Allah gave permission to the Prophet, peace and blessing be upon him, to leave Mecca, he migrated to Yathrib with Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, may Allah be pleased with him, and on the way they both had to hide in the cave of Thawr, as they were chased by some of the non-believers of Quraysh, and they finally made it and reached Yathrib safely. The people of the city came out to welcome him gladly, and were honored by his migration to it, and from that time on, the name of the city became Al-Madinatul Munawwara. The first step taken by the Prophet, peace and blessing be upon him, after coming to Al-Madinah al-Munawwara, was to build the prophetic mosque. Then he made brotherhood between the Muhajirin and the Ansar. They both were the first generation of Muslims in Al-Madinah. He also made brotherhood between the believers from the people of Medina and removed all the traces of hatred and grudges remaining from the Jahiliyyah, the time before Islam, from between them. After that, Allah the Almighty gave permission to the Muslims to fight the non-believers, and the Battle of Badr took place in the 2nd year of the Hijrah, where the Muslims totally defeated the non-believers of Quraysh. The battles continued one after another until the Peace of Hudaybiyyah was concluded between the Muslims and the non-believers of Quraysh in the 6th year of the Hijrah. It was a 10-year peace agreement between the two sides. In the 8th year of the Hijrah, the Muslims returned to Mecca, now as conquerors, and the idols which were for a long time worshipped by the non-believers of Quraysh were destroyed, and the word of Tawheed ultimately triumphed, and Islam spread throughout Mecca. The battles continued against the tribes that had not declared Islam until all the Arabs converted into it. They came to understand that they had no power to confront Islam anymore, and people entered the religion of Allah in huge numbers. In the 9th year of the Hijrah, delegations of Arabs came to pledge allegiance to the Prophet on Islam. There were groups of people chosen to represent their tribes, and that year was known as the year of delegations. In the 10th year of the Hijrah, Prophet Muhammad performed Hajj with his companions. This Hajj was called the farewell Hajj, because he did not perform Hajj after it. In the 11th year of the Hijrah, the Prophet, peace and blessing be upon him, fell seriously ill and passed away, after he had fulfilled the trust, conveyed the message of Islam, and advised the nation. May Allah bless him and grant him peace.